I want to state for the record that I am depressed. This morning I had a hard time eating. And then I got a message from somebody in the Gynarchy community asking me to give my thoughts on a topic. I really don't want to do this because I have a feeling that all it's going to do is further inflame tensions between community members, and yet at the same time, I have thoughts. I want to establish the place that I'm coming from before I get into the topic of the video. I am a Gynarchic content creator on YouTube. I put a lot of thought into this. I am passionate about this. I put my heart and soul into what I do. And being compared to a guy who shot another man twice and evaded accountability due to a mistrial, it was an insult. It's not the worst thing I've ever experienced, but it was an insult. I actually looked that up, and it turns out the group that he was part of, there's actually debate as to whether or not it was even a cult. Wow. So there's that. And then there was a point where I was banned. And that particular group is thankfully under new leadership, in my opinion, far better leadership than it was before. But as for the topic itself, I disagree with what the person is forwarding. And I want to explain why. I don't think that the problem, the one of the biggest impediments or issues facing the gun community, I don't think it's the lack of a unified vision. It's, in my opinion, something different. It's the lack of bipartisan support for group projects, art projects, and the like. There is only one bipartisan activity that I have actually seen take place in the Gynarchy community. It was done by, I believe, a woman in the Serious Reddit group. There were videos of women being assaulted or accosted or something, and both the women and the men agreed that the women need to be defended, that people need to speak out against the violence against women. That was a bipartisan activity that was engaged with by both sexes. And yet, when it comes to the idea of doing stuff like pamphlets, posters, any kind of artwork, particular community projects, it's generally lacking. And where does this come from? Where did the lack of bipartisanship come from? It comes from the culture. It comes from the hyper-competitive community of the United States and the other hyper competitive communities that exist around the planet. There is this implicit notion that if you are supporting somebody who believes something different from you, that you're undermining your own position. There is a lack of ability for individuals to compromise or to reach across the aisle with other individuals in order to get something done for the benefit of everyone. I saw this happen while this was unfolding. The irony, though, and as I don't even know if many people in the community realize this, is that the two individuals in particular who were either driven out or felt like they had to leave the group that I was banned from are the same ones that were involved in the Gynarchic pamphlet. So from my point of view, from my perspective, I see this as self-sabotage. And I don't mean towards necessarily any one individual. I mean, it's the community committing self-sabotage. I understand if you feel that certain artwork is harmful to your community. I also understand if you feel that somebody is problematic. However, The lack of willingness to show empathy and compassion and to try to reach across the aisle and be pragmatic, that is where I diverge from the community and why I have a tendency not to communicate or associate with the majority of the individuals from that community, because I see that as a problem. If I mean, they talk all the time about how, different thoughts and ideas. Yes, they do enrich the community, but if you can't move past your discomfort and learn to work with people who don't believe the things that you do, who feel the opposite way that you do, then you can't have any bipartisan group activities in general, because you're always going to get in the way of your own community's progress. I don't even think many people remembered about the pamphlet, and they certainly don't seem to think it's as important of an issue as the type of artwork the person supports or the way the individual is conducting themselves in these discussions. That seems to have taken a back seat to everything else. And I always find that so fascinating, because I do think that the criticism of the Gynarchy community being an echo chamber is an accurate one. I also think that attempting to dismiss people's thoughts and ideas without putting something in its place, I also think that's a problem. I've faced those things. I've had people say, "Why don't you just delete your videos?" I was like, "Yeah, are you going to put something in its place? Is somebody going to do the things that I'm doing right now?" "Oh, they're not. So you just want to write me off. You don't want to engage with any of my thoughts or ideas." Well, there are women in the community who do, and others, of course, who do engage with my thoughts and ideas and find them useful and important. So there you go. I've still got a reason to stick around. And I don't agree with egalitarian or democratic ideas anyways. So I'm not influenced by the majority feel like, yeah, the majority can be manipulated. The majority can be artificially inflated. There's a lot of ways you can eke out a majority that's not legitimate. And also the majority isn't always right on some issues. So I don't subscribe to egalitarian thought processes. Actually, when I think about a Gynarchy community, I think about a ruling council of women. I do not think about femocracy. I just, because I look at democracy and what it's brought us, and what these egalitarians have either done or failed to do for the rest of us. So, yeah, it's kind of personal. But yeah, the whole like, if you engage in this one activity, you can do no good. That's a disturbing idea, and that's one that I kind of gleaned off of this whole situation, which is, it never occurred to the people who were condemning the individuals into fetishistic artwork that they were also capable of doing non-fetishistic artwork. Both of the individuals in question were planning to do a non-fetishistic piece of artwork, and now it's kind of heads up, it's kind of toss up as to whether or not they're going to go follow through with that. It was going to be a non-fetishistic artwork. But in some people's minds, the whole us versus them mentality took over. And then it's like, okay, well, you're either for or against. There can't be any attempt to maybe try to recondition the person, maybe try to reason with them and say, look, I don't like what you're into. I think it's harmful, whatever, but I also think it's possible you could do good. There is this disturbing trend that if you are doing harm, that means you also cannot do any good. It's very bizarre. And it's something that I expect from the American electorate, and I'm disappointed to find it in the Gynarchy community. Nobody wants to reach across the aisle with people they disagree with and work together on something. And that's a problem, because you're not going to get anything done by yourself. You need other people. You got to cooperate. Now, the irony of the Gynarchy community is that it lives with a contradiction. They always talk about matriarchy, but they're constantly in conflict. And the conflicts get so severe that it causes schisms. And the aftermath of these schisms is people leaving the community, feeling like they're not accepted, like they're not being supported, like they're being dehumanized. And while I understand where one group is coming from, just writing somebody off and not seeing the potential good that they can do, it's incredibly short-sighted behavior. It's also hostile behavior, and it's something I would expect from human beings who've grown up in a society that preaches hyper-competitive competition as the way to go, as the only source of growth. I don't even think these people realize how much androcentric conditioning they still have to work off before they embrace matriarchal values, much less gynarchic values. Because if you can't even overcome your own discomfort or your own ego and try to think of what's for the greater good of your community, then it's a foregone conclusion what'll happen to the Gynarchy community. It'll always end up being exactly where it is right now. And aside from that, one other particular thing I observed in all of this that made me just kind of shake my head over and over again, and this does cause me depression, anxiety, is look, I understand if you hate what I do. I've already been banned from one group, so I understand if you hate me. I understand if you hate other people in the community and if you think what they're doing is harmful. I understand that. But if you're going to say that somebody should stop doing something, you should be trying to put something in its place. If somebody wants me to stop making these videos, then that means somebody else should start making their own videos and getting on camera. Or at the very least, you don't have to do what I do. You can just start making topical videos on YouTube and elsewhere and use a voice changer or something if you don't want people finding out who you are. You could do that. I mean, there's also people on the internet who wear masks in their videos. It's a long ongoing thing that's happened for over a decade. There's plenty of ways that you can protect your own identity if you're not comfortable doing what it is that I do. You don't have to do things exactly my way, but the problem is I've noticed this, and this is how I feel. This is maybe not the way it is, but this is how I feel and how I take it. People want to tear other human beings down to build themselves up, but they don't want to replace something at all. They want to just dismiss things, destroy things, put them in the trash, but they don't actually want to produce any kind of content in that area in their regard. So there's only two conclusions. Either what they think they're doing is good enough, which it isn't in my opinion, or two, they think that there's no value to what it is that I do. In other words, they don't value the work at all and think that there's nothing to remove really because nothing was ever there. That kind of thinking. The kind of thinking of no one's going to miss this content, no one's going to care about this content, which is demonstrably false. But nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to put the work in. I remember that's one of the reasons why I deleted all of my comments from that one group, because I don't want them benefiting from my labor if they don't appreciate the time, effort I put into this stuff. If you're going to do that, I'll take my work and my labor elsewhere to somebody or something or a group, whatever, that will appreciate what it is that I'm doing for them. That's the way I feel about it. And I see people who are dogging on artists, who are criticizing them, who don't make their own artwork. And it comes across as insulting to me. It's like, okay, you hate what this person is doing. Fine. What are you doing? How are you contributing to the community other than typing out comments? That thing that every Gynarchist on the internet fucking does. Every Gynarchist on the internet has typed something out, whether it's a comment, a discussion, whatever. We've all done that. But when you're talking about criticizing an artist, where's your artwork? No, they just want something gone. Like I said, they want the artwork gone because they don't like it, but they don't want to put anything in its place themselves. They're perfectly free criticizing people, but they don't like to put in any of the labor-intensive work that's involved in producing a piece of artwork or in filming videos or brainstorming topics. They don't like to do these things. They just want to feed off of the discussions for whatever reason. It comes across as disrespectful to artists, but it also tells you something about that community, which is a lot of these individuals, they don't want to participate directly in the community in any way that makes them feel uncomfortable or that challenges their comfort zone. And if you can't displace yourself from your comfort zone in order to contribute, well, what do you have? Stagnation. So this is one of the many reasons why I don't interact with that community. A lot of them have these mentalities of, you know what, you do this one harmful thing, you're not a human being anymore. I have no sympathy for you. You're this, you're that, you're the blah 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 blah. No practical way of operating or conversing with people, and it's also not pragmatic to just dismiss people like that. Because what happens if one of them personalizes what you said or did, and then now what was once an ally becomes your greatest enemy, somebody who will actively seek to destroy you? This is why you have to be careful who you're talking to and how you're talking to them, because I heard somebody in the community say that the person might be narcissistic. So let me get this straight. You know that you think the person might be personality disorder, and yet at the same time, you might be talking to them in a way to where they'll personalize the event. I've had people in my life with NPD. They are some of the most vindictive human beings on the face of the planet. They are people who they can have no moral limits. They can fuck your life up. Take it from somebody whose mental health suffered as the result of living with somebody who had NPD. Like one of the worst cases I've ever seen. Your language matters and how you treat people matters. So if you're not willing to accept that maybe it's not just the other person, yeah, are there problems with people in this community? No kidding. But are there also problems with the people who don't contribute enough, but then they want to knock on other people who are contributing, who are putting out more work and doing more stuff? That's another thing that kind of, when Religion Made Simple alerted me to what was going on in that community, I went and looked at it, and it's always the same kinds of individuals who seem to get knocked on. It's the people being productive. If somebody is just making one comment or whatever, it's like, no one really cares. But when one of these people starts doing a lot of content and getting noticed for it, all of a sudden, if they're not doing things exactly our way, time to give them the boot. And I remember I saw something that said, there's too much artwork from a male, something like that before. I don't know if it's been deleted or not, but it made me think, how much artwork is too much artwork? Who gets to arbitrarily, that seems like a very arbitrary rule. It doesn't seem like something that's ironclad. And that can get you into a lot of trouble when you're playing around with people that way. So like making arbitrary stuff up, like, well, if there's too much of it, well, okay. But if somebody is being productive and then you punish them and then you do something to them, even if they don't know the exact reason for it, they're going to feel like they're being punished for being productive, for standing out. And so that's also, even though that's not, that's more of an emotional thing, I guess, than a logical thing. But I see that happening. I see people in that community going, oh, your artwork sucks, it's trash, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, where's your artwork? Where's your stuff? If you've ever seen History of the World Part 1, there's the birth of the critic. Like, they want to piss on other people's artwork, but they don't want to do any of their own artwork. Just like how many of these people, they don't want to, do things to reach out to the people in their in-person community with pamphlets, posters. They don't want to put in the work for that, but they want to shit on the people who are prepared to put in the work for that. A lack of pragmatism is something that's also going to kill this community. Understanding that maybe working with someone requires that for the time being you suspend your anger and your upset and your problems with the other person because they have something else to offer. But no, that's not how people think today. And it's because of, and I'm not saying it's entirely their fault, it's the fucking culture that did it. This culture is so polarized now, mostly due to the politicians over the past 15 to 20 years who have made it impossible for people to engage in what's called bipartisanship of really any kind, because they feel like even working with the opposition is somehow a betrayal of their own ideals, of their own values. That kind of thinking, it's already destroying the United States. If you want it to destroy your community too, continue to indulge in it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying that they don't have valid points of view on either side, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you can't have a problem with artwork or that a person isn't doing something harmful, they're making certain artwork or anything like that. I'm simply saying that if you want to reduce somebody to they're just this or they're just that, you are dehumanizing that person. And you are also failing, you are cutting off any attempt at bipartisanship. You are refusing to see the possibilities, refusing to use your imagination to imagine how things could be with that individual or with other people. That is a major problem. And I think that that is one of the primary impediments to this community. Please take care, everybody. I'm going to get going after I drink some water. I don't know if I answer this question to your satisfaction, but that's my take on it. I'm going to be taking a week off from this. I've got other things to do. I just got a letter from my state senator that was basically a big nothing burger. And it's one of the things that's making my depression worse. This asshole already told me everything that I already knew that he was doing as a virtue of his party affiliation. It's nothing I couldn't have figured out on my own, so it came across as very condescending, and he didn't answer my question about state funding. So in other words, he's basically telling me and my family, if something bad happens to us, we're on our own. Thanks, asshole. Anyways, it's back to the community. Once again, please take care. Peace out. I hope you all have a great day. And I hope that the other people who are leaving the community, I hope you reconsider joining later. And I also hope that you reflect on what other people are saying too, as well as this video. Thank you for your time. Please be safe out there.